I just wanted to hold up the University of Idaho has a common read every year, and this is Tomatoland, and this is our common read this year, and it's a good book on the tomato, but you know, it's one of those books that covers a lot of different agricultural topics. Okay, so I am the University of Idaho Extension Educator serving the Coeur d'Alene tribe. I'm funded through a USDA grant, a program called FERTEP, and that is specific to tribes, and there's 36 programs around the country. I have a banner, and if you want to talk to me more about my program. So the Food Coalition is one project within my program, and it was started before I started my position. And so the extension educator is the chair of this coalition. So I inherited that. Just to tell you a little bit about our area, the Coeur d'Alene Reservation is north of University of Idaho, just at the base of the Idaho Panhandle. And our population is about 6,600. There's about 1,250 American Indians on the reservation. Some are Coeur d'Alene tribal members, some are Native, some are registered with other tribes. Just to draw attention to the map, so the red line on this map shows the Aboriginal territory of the Coeur d'Alene tribe, and that was about 5 million acres where they had their seasonal rounds and collected foods and were self-sustaining. And then the reservation today is the smaller boundary with Plummer in the center, and the tribe, it owns, or native ownership is about 25% of that reservation boundary, and so that's just our context. This is a photo of kids at the lake, so we're trying to get them connected with their lands and waters. So the vision of the Food Coalition is healthy food plus healthy people equals a thriving community. It's a beautiful vision. This is a view from some of the huckleberry picking grounds up high in the mountains, and just to give you a little more context. The mission of the Food Coalition is promoting healthy lifestyles through education, community involvement, food production, and preparation. So it's pretty broad still, and I won't read every slide, but those are important for the work that we're doing. This is a picture near the lake where we have Water Potato Day. And that's an educational program. We have about 450 students from preschool through college age that come to different stations, educational stations at the lake. This is right before all the buses arrive. Our coalition members include Native and non-Native community members. The Benoit Medical Wellness Center, which is a tribe, Coeur d'Alene tribe, I was going to say business, but it's an organization of the tribal government. And then they have a couple programs that are participating diabetes prevention and native lifestyle balance. And then they recently received, it was a collaborative effort, but a community transformation grant from the Center for Disease Control. The Coeur d'Alene Tribe's Natural Resources Department participates, local schools, and then also the University of Idaho Extension, and then we pull in other faculty as we can. So one of the factors that's a background is that access to healthy foods in rural environments and on reservations can be somewhat limited. An example of that is we have 8 convenience stores, none selling fresh produce or fruits, and we have 1 grocery store. And it does have a pretty good produce section, but it's in the back behind the end caps that have Budweiser and Red Bull and Hot Cheetos. So that's just an example of the barrier. There's a high rate of diabetes and obesity and the other health effects from obesity on the reservation. And a historical context for that is that over the last 100 years, the local natives have faced a disruption of access to their traditional foods, which were very healthy foods. This is a graph that I borrowed from the diabetes, the CDC's diabetes project, and I circled the end here. This is youth between 10 to 19 years, and this is the rate of new type 2 diabetes in the American Indian population. So very high new cases of type 2 diabetes. The Food Coalition history started with a grant from the Northwest Community Foundation and that was a program called Horizons. That steering committee formed a nonprofit called One Sky North Idaho, and they developed various steering committees on the arts, economic development, etc., and one of those was the Food Coalition. So they started some different projects, and one of the first ones was starting a community garden. So we now have 5 different locations, 22 raised beds, and approximately 400 pounds of produce were produced this year. Last year it was probably a little less in 2012 actually. We have monthly meetings and events and various projects, which I'll summarize. So the monthly educational events, some examples, we have a lentil and bean cook-off every November, and we usually have about 60 entrants, and then anyone from the community can come eat lunch and sample all of these delicious, healthy foods. We also have another winter event called For the Common Good, and this is cooking demonstrations and recipe handout and sampling for using commodities foods, which have been government-issued foods that a lot of people use on the reservation, and this is where Indian fry bread came from, was the availability of wheat flour, and so working to use some of those commodities foods in healthier, more nutritious ways. A lot of times I think the flour can just end up sitting in people's pantry. They don't, besides fry bread, what can you do with some of those foods? We also have been working on improving food access and nutrition, so that's where the community garden comes in. We started a farmer's market last summer, and this was the second summer, very successful. We also focus on education for nutrition and food access. And then another project that I started is working on food system assessment. So trying to identify, what do we have going on, where's it coming from? And so that's a multifaceted project, which I'll go into a little bit. So the first step that we did, we worked with Helen Brown from University of Idaho, and she is a nutritionist, and she introduced us to the NEMS method, Nutrition Environmental Measures Survey. So I have the web address here. This is a tool that you can use yourselves in your own community, and it's used to evaluate your grocery stores, convenience stores, restaurants, and also vending machines. And what this survey does, I'll go into it a little bit, and then we also did a community food access survey. So let me go to the next slide. This is just the covers. Helen helped us get a Blue Cross grant, and so they funded a little bit of graphic design so we could have beautiful products to go and talk to the managers of the market. The casino is a multi-million-dollar operation. We do not want to be walking in to talk to them about their restaurants with, shabby presentations. So the NEMS survey tool was developed by University of Pennsylvania, and I mentioned where we used it before. And actually, I don't think we ended up finding really any vending machines. So the neat thing about the NEMS was that it opened the dialogue for the Food Coalition people with those managers who are very busy people, but to talk to them about what are the healthy options in the stores and restaurants, and we had some neat success stories from that. And then it also provides us a measurable baseline, so the diabetes program is going to go back every year and kind of re-measure. So one example is it doesn't measure everything, it just has some metrics. So like for bread, how many wide is your bread offering, and then of that, how many are healthy options? Of your milk, if you have 6 gallons of milk, how many of those gallons of milk are low fat or non-fat? So that's kind of the things that you're counting, and then you can compare it with everyone else who is doing this in the country and kind of give you a good idea. So, and then the community food access survey, we actually got 200 responses on the survey, which is really high for a survey. The reservation with its adjacency to University of Idaho has been very over-surveyed, and people are sick of surveys. So we were really glad to get that. But people are excited about the idea of getting more access to fresh, healthy fruits and vegetables and local foods. So they did say that access is a barrier. Most people drive over 30 minutes up to Coeur d'Alene or down to Moscow, which is 50 miles, to get their groceries. There's a high interest in cooking, canning, and preserving, and also cultural foods. So that's one of the things that we want to be working on. The factor that most impacted food decision was price. So a lot of people, even though we have this grocery store on the reservation, it's fairly high priced because everything has to get shipped in, and then sometimes like the salad in the bag is already kind of funky looking. Maybe it got warm or something, I don't know. But 5 minutes, okay, thank you. So the Blue Cross grant allowed us to do the food access survey. We also gave out coupons for healthy options. So if you bought fruits or vegetables or low-fat milk or whole wheat bread at the grocery store, you could get $1 off, which is pretty good. The Blue Cross grant bought cooking equipment for our 4-H program and our adult cooking classes, which was helpful. We're cooking in scratched up Teflon pans that are too small for the volume of food we're trying to make, and we got farmers market signs, which really helped with attendance of customers at the farmers market and new vendors. And then we had also funded Healthy Choices campaign materials with the graphic designer, and a reusable grocery bag. So our main food system improvement projects: the community garden, the farmers market, youth education, and adult education, just to summarize. And this is a photo of our commodities cooking event. And then these are some photos of our community garden, our community gardens and our farmers market. On the bottom, let's see, your guys' left is a new community garden in a small town called De Smet, and this is a wheelchair accessible garden. It's in a private lot owned by this gentleman in the wheelchair, Dusty, who's in the middle of the garden, and he asked for this garden, and we jumped on the chance, and then he circulates the fresh fruits and vegetables that he's growing. Actually, that one whole bed is strawberries, to the kids and others in the community who want it. And he told me that having the garden this summer helped him get out of bed every morning, so that was inspiring to me. Let's see, our 4-H program tries to link kids with the natural environment and their food sources. So these are just some of the kids' boards that they made after their, to culminate their 4-H projects. So we have the Natural Resources Department comes in and teaches fishing. And so the kids learn about the fish in the area and how to fish and gut fish and prepare fish. And then we always have a cooking group with our 4-H and gardening. And that gardening program is about 3 years old. The Coeur d'Alene Tribe Natural Resources Department is heavily invested in restoring the lands that have been logged, and also we are downriver from the huge silver mining operation, so the lake bottom is fairly contaminated. And so these are 4 of the departments. I also wrote down 2 others. The Environmental Programs Department, and who else am I forgetting? Forestry. So those are important to help, and that will help us get more access to native foods. Right now, basically native foods are accessed through families. So families teach their kids how to hunt and how to preserve deer, and so that system is fairly well intact, but there's a lack of access to the lands sometimes for some families, and some of our kids are not always being raised by their parents, so they need access to lands and learning how to fish and stuff like that. Okay, so this is an example of one of the tribe's projects, and we take kids every summer during our summer camp called Rock in the Res, and they get to see the camas field restoration and why the tribe is doing this, and then we collect seeds that get replanted for camas. And that is harvesting. And there are fruit trees on the reservation. Thank you. 1 minute. And but sometimes they go unharvested because people don't have ladders to get up to the fruit and stuff like that. And then hopefully establishing new partnerships. We also want to continue our assessment work, and that's important. Okay, so lessons learned. The coalition started small, I would say, and with just 1 garden bed, and then it's kind of grown into this program where we have a lot of collaboration and productive partnerships, and we've actually gotten some donations from some private parties that's helped us fund our garden educator, nutrition educator. And then I would say each person who's been involved has gone through personal transformation, either through changes in their own lifestyle, eating habits, or various activities.